Everyone, Anthony here from MTG Alpha, and today I'm going to do a deck tech video on Sliver Gravemother. This is going to be a Sliver tribal deck tech, and maybe you can get some ideas for possible upgrades for that deck. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be going over today. Before we get into that though, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a game I made called Legions of Will. So Legions of Will is a TCG that I created a couple of years ago. We came out with a sort of Kickstarter set, and our second set will be here in just a few days. And so you can check that out. There's a link in the description. There's Discord, Instagram, and we have like 400 people in the Discord. Lots of people to trade with and play with. You can play Legions of Will for free on Steam through Tabletop Simulator, and all 500 plus cards are in there. The goal of the game is to take out your opponent's bases. So this right here is a legendary base. Bases have stats, defense, capacity, and resource, which you gain at the start of each of your turns. And then you have upgrades, which enhance your bases with abilities or stats. And then you have traps, which can be played defensively. You have actions, which can be played at any time. And then you have units, which have a will and a power. So you roll a d12, and as long as the result is greater than or equal to its will, which is the smaller number, then this unit would meet that requirement to attack. So yeah, units will have abilities, and that's kind of where the name Legions of Will comes from. So yeah, if you check it out, let me know that you came from MTG Alpha, and appreciate it. Link in the description, and let's get back to the video. All right, so Sliver Gravemother is the newest legendary sliver from Commander Masters. You can get it in the precon. Sliver Gravemother costs 5, and its ability says that slivers you control, the legendary rule does not apply to slivers you control. Slivers you control have Encore X, where X is that creature's mana cost. And Sliver Gravemother itself has Encore 5. So you would pay 5, exile that creature, create a token for each opponent, and that token would have to attack each of your opponent, sacrifice it at the end of the turn. So what's nice about it is slivers in general are a target. So the biggest weakness against the sliver deck is going to be a board wipe. So you can build up very quickly. They can get very strong unless you have the Sliver Hive Lord that gives them indestructible or something similar. Then it's the idea is going to be board wipe immediately. Once you wipe them all out with a board wipe, then now you're slowed down, and it's an effective way to lose while playing that game with that deck. So what I do like about Sliver Gravemother is that we can bring back our slivers, create multiple copies of them, not just pay the cost and bring it back and have one copy, but we could have multiple copies of it. And while they're under our control, we can try to get whatever value we can from them, and hopefully keep everything going. So this is going to be, now there's a few cards that are not in here, like the legendary and the precon. In general, the precon has a nice mana curve. There's pretty much you're playing all colors in there. I found that slivers are best when you stick to Naya, so white, red, and green. There are some really good blue and black slivers, so we'll splash in those in the deck, like Siphon Sliver and a couple slivers which will give our slivers flying. But aside from that, red and green is going to be the most effective. We have all of our keywords on the red and green slivers, like Menace, Haste, Double Strike, First Strike. We get our +2 powers, our +3 powers, our +1/+1s for power and toughness. And then with white, we have things like lifelink and you know, abilities like that. So if you're gonna get the precon, I'm most interested in a few cards. I'll have a deck list, a link to the deck list in the description. You can see those few cards and everything, but this will be just full of upgrades for the deck. And there is the other legendary in the precon, which is really nice. I believe she's called like Rema Cruel or something like that. It kind of sounds like Emma Cruel, but what she does is she's very similar to the Slivdrazi Monstrosity test card. If you guys don't know it, I'll flash it here on the screen. Very similar to that, where you choose a creature type when she enters, and non-token creatures and slivers you control gain that creature type. So pretty interesting. And you can pay 3, tap her to create a 1/1 sliver. Now, the only ability, she's most of Slivdrazi Monstrosity, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see in the Eldrazi precon something similar that says, choose a creature type, creatures of the chosen type gain Annihilator 1 and Devoid, and you can, create a 1/1 Scion with that legendary that'll accompany the Eldrazi precon. So, yeah, it's very similar to that Slivdrazi test card that you guys can see here. So that card looks like a lot of fun, and if it really opens up the possibility for creating a Sliver Eldrazi deck, which when I saw that test card I really wanted to do. And it's going to be tough to break down a Sliver deck and an Eldrazi deck and try to merge the two, but seems like a really fun idea. So enough of that, we're going to get into it. We're going to start with our creatures. There are 40 plus creatures in this deck, so a ton of creatures, and we could even increase those numbers. There's just a few artifacts and enchantments, and we can actually make room for more creatures by taking some of those out. So we're going to start with our legendaries. So we have Sliver Overlord. Pay 3, search your library for a Sliver card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. You can pay 3 to gain control of target Sliver. The first ability is really great because we can tutor up any Sliver that we need on the spot. I usually go for Sliver Hive Lord. Sliver Hive Lord gives Slivers you control indestructible, because once we start to build up a board presence, we want to protect ourselves from a board wipe. So if I don't already have Sliver Hive Lord out, I'm definitely going to tutor up my legendary Slivers, or maybe the Sliver that prevents Slivers you control from being countered, or it gives them Shroud. So those are good targets for this ability, but pay 3 to tutor up any Slivers is great. And given our Slivers indestructible is fantastic. This card has a reprint in the set, so if you don't already have it, it is in the precon. Sliver Legion was recently reprinted, and this gives Slivers +1/+1 for each other Sliver on the battlefield. It's sort of like coat of arms, so if we have 5 Slivers, each Sliver would get +4/+4. So this is great for buffing up our creatures. Our Slivers are going to do mainly keyword abilities and pumping each other up. So we're going to be giving them just every keyword under the sun and give them +1/+1, +2/+2, +3/+3. And if they have those, if they're, a 5/5 with Death Touch, Flying, Winded Attack, Steal 1, Lifelink, Toxic, all these other things, draw a card, the keywords are going to overpower, even if it's just a 5/5. First Sliver has Cascade, so when you play it, reveal the cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a permanent with lesser CMC, and Sliver spells you cast have Cascade. So really good legendary. Sliver Queen, of course, classic. This card's around 300. It depends on your budget, but if you're rocking Slivers, I want to consider Sliver Queen. Reserve list card, so it won't see a reprint, and again, depending on your budget, it may be something you can consider. Sliver Queen is a Sliver, of course, and you can pay 2 to put a Sliver token into play, and it enters as a 1/1 colorless creature, which is right here. So this does have combo potentials, and yeah, if you have things like, if your Slivers have haste and you can reduce this cost, you have things like Ashnod's Altar, you could go infinite in several ways with her. Morophon the Boundless. Also, we've seen a reprint for this in the main set. It is every creature type, so this is a Sliver, And when it enters, choose a creature type, Slivers. They cost, spells of the chosen type you cast cost Wooburg, white, blue, black, red, green, less to cast. So all of our legendaries would be free. And it would basically just remove the pips from, as long as it's only one pip, it would remove one of each pip from our cards. So this would just simply cost one colorless. If we have things like Urza's Incubator, this would then be free. It only reduces the amount of colored mana you play, so it does give you that reminder. And other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So that's it for the legendary Slivers. Now we have our green Slivers here. We have our Gemide Sliver, so this is going to be our ramp. This will, all Slivers have tap, add 1 mana of any color. We have that with Mana Weft Sliver, except it's more for creatures we control. Bloom Tender, we have a few non-Slivers in the deck. Bloom Tender taps for each color among permanents you control. So if you have all 5 colors out, white, blue, black, red, green, this would tap for 5 total, white, blue, black, red, green. So this is great just for fixing your mana. Again, we're focusing on Naya colors, red, green, and white. But of course we want to play our legendaries and we want to be able to play our other colors when we want. So this deck is very tuned for playing anything we want. There's no issues with that. And it's because of cards like this. And Dryad of the Elysian Grove. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So this fixes our colors and it allows us to ramp. And Realm Walker is also a shapeshifter like Morophon, so it is every creature type, including Slivers. ETB, choose a creature type. You may look at the top of your library at any time. You may cast creatures, so that'll be Slivers, from the top of your library. So it still follows the casting requirement, so unless it has flash, you have to just play it on your turn still. Fabro Elder, another non-Sliver. Vigilance gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control, so this very well could be a 5/5 with Vigilance, and it taps for each color among permanents you control. Synapse Sliver, so these are, that was our ramp. So here we have, whenever Sliver deals combat damage to a player, its controller may draw a card, so we have card draw with that. We can go wide with Brood Sliver. Whenever Sliver deals combat damage to a player, its controller may put a 1/1 Sliver creature token onto the battlefield, which we could also then, you know, do a lot of stuff, but also use those to tap for mana and play more cards. Harmonic Slivers are removal. All Slivers have, when this creature comes into play, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Very good. And then we have our Slivers that'll help pump up our other Slivers, giving them +0/+1, +1/+1. This you can pay X and give them base power XX until end of turn. So we can dump 10 in there, give them base power of 10, and then all of the +1/+1s and all those other abilities will stack on top of it. Muscle Sliver gives +1/+1, +1/+1, and then Sliver creatures you control have, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on it, so more buffing up our creatures. And then Sliver creatures have, whenever this creature is dealt damage, put a 1/1 counter on it. Very good with the Fungus Sliver. Might Sliver gives +2/+2, +3/+3, and Adaptive Automation, 3 colorless, very easy to play. Choose a creature type when it enters, Sliver. It becomes a Sliver in addition to its other type, which is Construct, and other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1, so more buffing them up there. We have some other abilities here. We have all of our keyword abilities. Sliver creatures have Poisonous 1. When it deals combat damage to a player, they get a poison counter. A player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game, so this is pretty deadly. Sliver creatures you control have Death Touch. They have Reach. They have Flash, essentially. You can, this Quick Sliver can be played anytime you can play an instant. So now with that and Realm Walker, we can play Slivers off the top of our deck at instant speed. Root Sliver can't be countered, and Sliver spells can't be countered. So now they can't be countered. Now they have Vigilance. Now they don't have lifelink, so if they gain lifelink, this would be 2 instances of gaining life. Whenever Sliver deals damage, its controller gains that much life. Sliver creatures you control have double strike. And when Ward Sliver comes into play, choose a color. All Slivers have protection from the chosen color. There's a lot of things we could choose there, but removal is going to be, we're going to be dealing with, like, you know, colors that deal with removal. So black, white, maybe red, but black and white basically would be your best bet there. Pulmonic Sliver, all Sliver creatures have flying, and they have, if this permanent would be put into a graveyard, you may put it on top of its owner's library instead. It's a really good card. If you look at the mana curve of this, there are some cards around 5 CMC that I need to take out and replace with other cards. Now, playing it, there's not an issue, but when you take a look at it on paper, it looks like the mana curve can be adjusted a little bit better, but there's just so many good cards at 5 that it kind of throws the mana curve off. But again, the deck plays very well, and I never run into that issue, especially with, you know, Gemhide and Mana Whip Sliver. But yeah, really good card for 5. And for 6, Constricting Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have, when this creature enters the battlefield, you may exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. So now everything turns into an Oblivion Ring on ETB. Pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. There are some very impressive cards in here. Slivers have First Strike. Slivers have Haste. Slivers have Menace. Slivers have Provoke. When a Sliver attacks, its controller may have target creature defending player controls untap and block it if able. So we can force, if I'm attacking and there's a creature that we want to take out, but our opponent's not willing to block with it, we could force it to block after untapping it. Pretty nuts. Sliver creatures you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, so Menace. Sliver creatures you control have, whenever this creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target player or planeswalker. So if our creatures are average 5 power, whenever they deal damage, any damage, or whenever they're dealt damage, sorry. So actually, a little bit better. If your opponent is going to be swinging on with large creatures and you want to like throw a 1/1 in front of it, then now you could redirect that damage to a player or planeswalker. So actually pretty nuts for 3. Sliver creatures you control have Haste. Haste is great. And Sliver creatures you control have, whenever this creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Cloud Shredder Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have Flying and Haste for 2. This itself would have Flying and Haste. And then Crystalline Sliver is going to be one of the cards we want to like tutor up as quick as possible, because Slivers cannot be the target of spells or abilities. So we can basically try to keep everything on the board as long as possible. Lava Belly Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have, when this creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker, and you gain 1 life. So there's a few ways we can gain life, and it's a pretty crazy card. So yeah, that's all of our Slivers. That's all of our Sliver creatures and other creatures. Like I said, there's a few cards that I would like to add: Siphon Sliver, some of the flyers, and then that new legendary. Aside from that, you could tell, you know, we have white, red, and green mostly, and we have like 1 blue card, and I would be willing to add another couple blue cards and black cards, but those seem to be the best when building Slivers. Of course, there's a lot of good ones. So we have our instants and sorceries. Not many cards left in the deck. Really, that's half the deck right there with our Slivers. So with our creatures, we have Explore to play an additional land and draw a card. Farseek to search for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain, put on the battlefield tapped. So we have our tutoring up our lands with 3 visits. Search your library for a forest, put on the battlefield, that comes in untapped. Crossing Grip for some removal. This is a card that you can definitely swap out. I most likely will. But it's always nice to kind of like err on the side of caution. Destroy target artifact or enchantment with split second, so it can't be responded to. Chaos Warp, just if for whatever reason there's a way we can't deal with something, it just seems like a fun gamble to the owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, reveal the top card of their library. If it's permanent, they put it onto the battlefield. So this is another card you could swap out Chaos Warp and Corrosive Grip for just some more Slivers. And Radiant Destiny as well. Choose a creature type when it enters, and creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1, and Vigilance as long as you have the City's Blessing, which means you control 10 or more permanents, and you don't lose it at all. So pretty good in general for tribal decks, but again, you can just play more Slivers, and it seems like that's kind of the thing to do. Rhythm of the Wild, though, I probably would just keep this in here. Creature spells you control can't be countered. That's pretty important. And then non-token creatures you control have Riot, so they can enter with a +1/+1 counter, or they can gain haste. So I actually do like this. Another card would be the Tribute to the World Tree. That would be a really good addition to the deck. We do have Guardian Project for card draw. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. As long as it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard. In Commander, this card is has a price tag attached to it because it just works so well in Commander. For our artifacts, we have Felwar Stone to help fix our mana. Taps for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent can produce. We have Pillar of Origins. Choose a creature type. Taps for any color. Spend this only to cast creatures of the chosen type. So really good card. Arcane Signet, of course. Herald's Horn reduces the cost of creature spells you cast of the chosen type, so Slivers again, by 1. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it to your hand. That's going to be 50% of the time, basically, with all the creatures we have in here, so that effect is even more powerful. Chromatic Lantern is going to fix our colors. Lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. This itself taps for 1 mana of any color. And then we have Vanquisher's Banner. Choose a creature type. Slivers you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. Timeless Lotus enters tapped, costs 5 colorless, and then it'll tap for Wooburg. So now we can easily pay for our legendary creatures. And Chromatic Orrery, same deal. It costs 2 more. But you can spend mana as though it were mana of any color. So it taps for 5 colorless, but you can spend that however you choose. And you can pay 5 to tap it and draw a card for each color among permanents you control. So you can tap for any color, any color within like 5 colors, whatever. And you can pay 5 to draw 5 cards. So really, really good. For our lands, we have our multicolored lands here, Cavernous Souls. Choose Slivers, taps for colorless, or taps for 1 mana of any color, only if it's of the chosen type, so Slivers in this case, and it can't be countered. We have Command Tower, of course. Forbidden Orchard. Add 1 mana of any color. Whenever you tap it, target opponent creates a 1/1 colorless spirit token, so that's a good trade-off. Reflecting Pool taps for 1 mana of any color that a land you control could produce. Exotic Orchard does the same, except for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls. Ancient Ziggurat taps for 1 mana of any color. You can only play creature spells with it. City of Brass taps for 1 mana of any color, deals 1 to you. Sliver Hive taps for colorless, or 1 mana of any color, can only be spent on Sliver spells. And you can pay 5 to tap it to create a 1/1 colorless Sliver. You can only activate it if you control a Sliver. So it's fine later in the game. ETB, choose a type, taps for 1 colorless or any color if it's spent to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, or even activate an ability of a creature or a creature card of the chosen type. Unclaimed Territory does essentially the same thing. Path of Ancestry, same thing. When you do spend it on a Sliver or a creature of the chosen type, you get to scry. As long as it shares the type with your commander. Cascading Cataracts, it's indestructible. Taps for colorless, you can pay 5 to add 5 mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool. We have the World Tree, enters tap, taps for green. As long as you control 6 or more lands you control have tap to add 1 mana of any color. You could also do something that's not relevant in this deck at all. So You could pay a bunch, sack it, search the library for any number of god cards, and put them on the battlefield. But first ability is still pretty good. Raffine's Tower, we get Plains, Island, Swamp. We have this Triome, which gives us Island, Mountain, Plains. We have our fetch land, Polluted Delta, searching up a swamp or island that takes care of helping fix our colors here. We have green, white, red, white, white, blue, red, green, and then we have some more red, green, and white are the main colors in here. We have black, green, blue, red, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, black, red, white, black, and then we have one of each basic. We have white, blue, black, red, green. And then Command Beacon's great because we can sack it to put our commander into our hand from the command zone. The legendary slivers cost 5. If they're being targeted, which they often will be, then that cost can get pretty expensive, and it's nice to just sack it and be able to put it in our hand and possibly play for free with the Morophons. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the video. I'm gonna have a deck list in the description. There's a link to the Discord in the description. So yeah, join the Discord, check out the deck list, let me know what cards you would add in, and let me know what you guys think about the Commander Master set. I'm really curious to see what we're going to see in the Eldrazi one. I'm looking forward to that. But until next time, peace.